Welcome to the 12th episode of Around the MLS show with Sam and Chris right here on Africa Sports Network with focus on LAFC. And today we are honored and privileged to have in our midst Field Master 35, host of Defenders of the Banc podcast. Welcome to the program.
Oh, Sam, Chris, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. I'm really excited. As I mentioned to you earlier, thank you for breaking up the monotony of my day. It's so good to be on the show. So good talking about something I'm passionate about, which is the sport of football. And of course, my favorite club, LAFC.
You know, when it comes to the round letter game, you know, we are passionate about it here on Africa Sports Network. Even me and Chris, you know, we've been holding it down here, this part of the country, you know, covering both LAFC, Houston Dynamo, Austin, and the FC Dallas. So, Chris, thank you very much for connecting me with Field Master. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome.
You know, week 11 gave us something unique. You know, week 11 ended the conversation of unbeaten and winless. You know, Sporting Kansas, you know, won their first game. What a way to win your first game at Lumenfield. And we knew that Seattle, we are top form, but for Sporting Kansas to go there and get a 2-1 win, that was phenomenal. And LAFC went to the earthquake and they got rocked by the Quakes, you know. How did you feel when you saw that result, Phil?
So you're going through the season undefeated for a little while, and that's the context of every conversation when it's coming to LAFC. And you knew at some point that things were going to kind of slow down a little. Somebody might catch LAFC sleeping. They had a couple of games in which they didn't have a good run of form, and they somehow squeaked out a tie, squeaked out a couple of wins. So it was bound to happen. And with all of these games that LAFC is going to be playing this year between CONCACAF Champions League, U.S. Open Cup, this Leagues Cup, the Campeones Cup, there's going to be a lot more games this season that the teams ever played. So as a result of that, you knew the form was going to pull back a little bit. I'm happy that it came against San Jose, though, and not against Galaxy in Galaxy.
Chris.
Feel in the spirit. I told you every time that, you know, Galaxy is the worst team to want to lose to if you're an LAFC fan. You don't want even hear it in your ears losing to the Galaxy. So the more Galaxy go down, the more excited we are because that's like the worst team in the MLS. You know what I mean? And LAFC's at top. You know what I mean? So it's just tradition, Sam. It's just tradition. It's just how it works in the LAFC community. You know, that's just how it is.
It seems I'm the neutral one here. You LAFC, LAFC. I'm just in between. I'm just sitting on the fence right here. You know, just like you said, when you go through the Champions League, the League Cup, you know, the League Cup, the US Open Cup, you know, the league games and everything, I call it a lot of diminishing performance. It will set in. You know, the players will drop a little bit, but that defeat will be like a kick in the butt for them to really, re-energize themselves, you know, and get back on it because LAFC, they're a fantastic team. They are the most potent strike force in the league. Look at them, Dennis Boanga, the Gabonese striker. I think 12th, goes on competition for LAFC already this season. This is fourth year, and he has really shown us the stuff he's made of. When they signed that player, what was on your mind, Phil?
So it's anytime a new player comes into the team, the more hoopla, the more fanfare, the more exciting it is. But you never know how they're going to adjust to Major League Soccer. You got some of these players that have come into this league from the highest levels in the world, playing in the Premier League, thinking that this is going to be a walk in the park in Major League Soccer. Maybe 20 years ago, that would have been the narrative, but today it's a completely different ball game. So when Denny Bouanga signed on to the team, I don't even think he had as much fanfare because of who came in with him. I mean, you have the likes of Gareth Bale come in. You have Giorgio Chiellini coming in. And then that gets completely overshadowed. And in addition, if you were going to compare some of the late season signings, you had Christian Teo, which is a player that we thought would have a bigger impact on LAFC. Denny Bouanga, in the minutes that he started getting, you realized the physical force that he is. But he got lost in all the other fanfare for all the other players. But he's been such a welcomed addition. He's been fantastic. Since losing our number one scorer last season, Chicho Arango, people are not even asking about Chicho anymore. They missed him, but now they're talking about Denny.
Chris.
Yeah, it's a Dennis. Dennis has been performing so good. Like just watching him play, he's just a delight. He's just one of those players when you have in your team, you just know he's going to find the back of the net. You don't know when, but you just know he's going to do that. And he has been consistent. Even last season, he was one of the players that was part of the reason why LAFC won the MLS Cup. They became MLS champions last season. He was very, very important in that crew. And back in this season again, he's picking up again. Vela is a little bit slowing down, but Bouanga is that guy that always gets you that goal. And right now, he's the main man in the LAFC team. And, he does nothing but score goals, But my issue is back to the Champions League with LAFC now is playing Lyon in the final. Prior to this final that LAFC is going to play, 5 MLS teams have got into the finals of this CONCACAF championship, and just one have been able to win, which was Seattle Sounders, which won it last year. And LAFC has lost in the final once before. 2020. Phil, I know you remember what happened 2020 when Sagan broke our heart in the last minute to score that crazy goal that just broke all our hearts. What can you say about the last time we played them? We lost in the final to Tigers in 2020. What can you tell us about that, Phil?
So the game, I think, was really won or lost in the previous game between LAFC and Club America. And what I mean by that is there was a very crucial red card issued on Edward Atuesta from an interaction that he had with Club America's keeper, Memo Ochoa. It was a baited red card. And obviously with Edward Atuesta coming out of the game, one of the linchpins of your midfield and a man who's easily able to thread the ball into Carlos Vela, a real important part of our team, he sits this one out. But obviously that just means next man standing. A team full of professionals needs to adapt to this kind of adversity. And they came in there, they took care of business. It was gut-wrenching to lose to Tigres that late in the game at that stage. And that's a sour taste that's never quite left my mouth or any of the other LAFC supporters. To be frank, I would have preferred having Tigres in this game coming up because, we played Leon, and that game at Banc of California Stadium was one of the greatest games in club history. But it's like an afterthought, like an ex-girlfriend. You don't want to keep going back to the ex-girlfriend. Because she's in the past and she's there for a reason. But you do want to get back to the person who broke your heart, which is Tigres. So I'd love nothing more than to upset Gignac and company. But alas, it's Leon, such is life.
Yeah. So how will you compare? How you compare the team of 2020 and the team of 2023? Because right now, LAFC is back in the final game, but this time of Tigres, we're meeting Leon. So what is the difference? Which team do you think is better? Do you think this team can finally give us that CONCACAF championship? Or you think it might be like a 2020? Nobody wants us to lose, but which team do you think is mentally stronger?
2020 obviously was a crazy year. I mean, we went through COVID. We went through all kinds of other adversities. Carlos Vela wasn't very much part of that team. He didn't go down to Orlando for the MLS his back tournament. So that was a season that was kind of marred with a lot of other craziness and insanity. And one thing that we don't talk about is how it affected the players mentally and emotionally. Like that was a factor in it. But that being said, you compare even the 2019 Supporters Shield champion LAFC team to this one, and I think this is a better team because they're much better defensively. Throughout the course of Bob Bradley's tenure, the defense was a little, I don't want to say Swiss cheese, but they allowed in just a lot of goals compared to how many goals they would score. This team, on the other hand, has seemed to figure it out defensively, and they don't allow as many goals as other teams in the past. And they've also, more importantly, improved upon things like set-piece defense. I think this team is a lot better. And Denis Bouanga is actually playing on the same, if not a similar level that Carlos Vela was in 2019 when he was having a record-breaking season. But that being the case, LAFC doesn't have as many players that have scored like they did during that 19 and 20 run.
When you look at LAFC, when Gareth Bale came in, he brought something special to the team, a depth in squad. When the starting 11, if he didn't start, when the starting 11 weren't getting the goals, then you bring in Gareth Bale, a seasoned experienced player who played in the Premier League and the Spanish League. But when he left, were you guys thinking that you guys were going to miss him, that nobody could be able to plug up that vacuum led by Carlos Vela?
I can't say I was going to, with Gareth Bale leaving, I mean, to me, he was well worth the $1.5 million the team paid him. And if we only had to pay him $1.5 million for that goal that he scored against Philly, I would have done it twice. It was the best goal, one of the most exciting games I have ever seen. And coming from a player of his stature, Well, it's no surprise that he moved to Los Angeles because he has a home here. He always vacations here. So it makes sense for him to come here. But then what do you do afterwards? He already hit some of the highest levels of his career. He goes out like a champion with an MLS Cup for that short cup of coffee that he had here. Then he goes off to represent Wales in the World Cup for the first time since the 50s, even scoring a goal for the first time for Wales since they played Brazil. I think it was 54 or 58. I don't recall exactly. But good for him. I didn't expect him to have him a lot longer. But then you have Carlos Vela coming back, who, I like that. Carlos Vela, while, like Chris said, he has slowed up, he's still leading the team in assists, and he's still a very potent figure on offense. I mean, the man's brilliant. The way he passes the ball, the way he sees the field, the way he anticipates it. I mean, it's tremendous. And considering the fact that he doesn't have the speed that he once did, and he never really was the fastest player either. He's become a smarter player, and I think he's, I think in a way he's relieved, gentlemen, because he doesn't have to have all the scoring focus on him. He can distribute the ball to the likes of an assassin like Denis Bouanga.
Chris, you guys are LAFC fans, so you guys are 2 against 1. Just like you're talking about Carlos Vela this season, 9 games played, 6 starts, 51. 560 minutes in those 9 games, and he has been subbed off 5 times. We come to the attack, 3 goals and 7 assists. 3 goals from 7 shots on target, 21.4% conversion rate. So even though he has slowed down, but when he's on the pitch, it draws attention away from other players to do the damage. And I will call him the Prince of LA.
No doubt. What's his name? Vela is the star of LAFC anytime, any day. He's the biggest signing in the history of LAFC when he came in during the inaugural signing of LAFC when he just started. He has always been the face of LAFC, and he has been consistent. He has been that man that has carried the team behind his back when the chips were down, But during through this time around, is why I said he's slowed down. It's not because he's slowed down performing, but he's slowed down from scoring goals, which Denis Bouanga is coming, because the main focus all the time in play LFC, it has to be Vela. They kick him out. Once you lock Vela out, it's difficult for the team to perform. Yeah, but now the dynamics of the game has changed. Vela is still very dangerous, but he's not the main focus anymore on the team. So which that removed a little bit of burden from him, but even make him more dangerous because now he knows when to step in to get the goals. And the goals he's scored so far this season have been very crucial goals. He has been stepped out when the team have needed those goals more. And players like that are the kind of players you want to have in your team week in, week out to step up when it chips it down.
No, when you look at Bob Bradley and Steve, which of them will you have that great tactical, attack-minded coach, Bob and Steve?
It's a tough question because LAFC still is very much attack-minded. I mean, when the club was constructed by John Thorrington and Will Kuntz, it's now with the Galaxy, actually, the idea was to create a beautiful, exciting brand of football. So Bob was the architect for that. And we can see right now he's not quite successful in a dual role in Toronto. I mean, everybody wants his head on a platter right now. So in a way, it's kind of good that we don't have him. With Steve, he obviously comes in from the Bundesliga, having played a significant amount of time over with Hannover 96 and got his coaching pedigree done there. Now, what I could say, having lived in Germany, the Germans are very like precise, mechanical with the way they do things. And a lot of what Steve incorporates is from his time there. But the difference between him and Bob Bradley, what makes Steve a little better is Bob's more of an authoritative person. Right? It's kind of his way or the highway type deal, whereas Steve's still young enough to be somewhat of a player's coach. He's a lot more laid back. He's a lot more chill. And I think the players adapt to that a little better than getting yelled at. I mean, you can see, and heck, you could even argue that towards the end of Bob's tenure, maybe some things went in one ear and out the other. Whereas with Steve, everybody seems happy. Everybody seems cohesive. It's certainly a team dynamic. And more importantly, you start to see Carlos Vela smile more. He wasn't smiling as much during the end of Bob Bradley's tenure. I've got nothing but love and respect for Bob. What he did that 2019 season was magical. But Steve, in the first time ever, coaches won MLS Cup and Supporters Shield. He's obviously usurped Bob in a lot of ways. And I just think he's a bit more precise while having a bit more of a tender touch with his players.
So So Steve is like a man manager that's a little bit lenient with the players, while Bob is kind of high-handed, like, is my way or we go to the freeway.
And we know what the freeways are like in LA. They're brutal and dangerous.
All right. Now, coming to this week, 12, I know LAFC want to bounce back from that 2-1 setback at San Jose, and they are facing Real Salt Lake on the road. Real Salt Lake got a goalless draw against Houston in week 11. And Real Salt Lake at home, they're a little bit of formidable. What are you expecting from that game at Real Salt Lake this weekend?
I mean, RSL's a team that's below the playoff line that is having their fair share of struggles themselves. And LAFC's got a lot of sights set on what they're looking to do in the CONCACAF Champions League. They've got a brutal gauntlet between this weekend and May 31st, if you look at it. They're playing Real Salt Lake, which I expect for them to win. Sandy, Utah has never been a great place for us, and Real Salt Lake has had a tendency to beat us. But nonetheless, I still expect this team to adjust to the elevation that's there and to go in there and come out with a win. From there, they get to play Sporting Kansas City, and then they've got a couple other matches. Leon, totally on break between now and May 31st. So I continue to expect LAFC to win, even when we don't expect them to win, Sam and Chris. That game in the Open Cup where they literally brought the kids. If you average their age, minus Eldon, the goalkeeper, who's 38, they averaged 18 and a half years, and yet they beat a veteran team of players that were pretty darn good. When you don't expect them to win, they win still. They find a way. And that's what I think this team does better than a lot of other MLS teams. They can win and not play well. They can win and not have the resources that they need. I mean, as a supporter and lover of this team, also comes in with like a slightly biased approach. My unbiased perspective is I still expect them to win every single game they play in. That's what a championship mentality is. That's what a big club mentality is. And with everything that LAFC has been doing from off the field, like sponsorship money, becoming the first MLS team to achieve $1 billion valuation by Forbes, the partnership with Bayern Munich, all the different stuff they do, they're going big on everything. And so I expect them to go big in Real Salt Lake, a place that, well, again, not the most success against that team, but I still expect for us to whoop their ass.
Let's expect LAFC to whoop Real Salt Lake ass. Chris, when you look at just what he said, LAFC hasn't, I think they've beaten Real Salt Lake, I think 3 times or over 10, 11 games. But the fact is that they have that mentality that any game they go into is going to be a W. Chris, what's your take on that?
Yeah, as you said already, it's the mentality of LAFC. It's, you understand, the culture of the team is very fundamental in the success of the team. It's from the players to the coaching crew to the fans. It's all the collective effort that makes LAFC unique, special, different, and the best team in the MLS. Not just talking about money, about being a $1 billion worth valuation by Forbes, but just the way it's being nurtured is very different from any other American MLS team. It's MLS. LAFC is like a combination of Madrid and Bayern Munich. From the mentality to the structure and ground. You can just see the kids that just won the US Cup. It shows that there's something working for the team. There's something management that put in these players, not just the senior team, but down to the academy. There's something that they're teaching them that every other person do not have access to, that they don't know. So the culture is great. So LAFC, every game, anytime, any day, we all want LAFC to win. We all know that they have to win because it's not just about bragging. They have the players. They have the muscle to bulldoze and win anybody on the ground. If you want to check out LAFC roster, all the players are playing very well. I know we spoke about Dennis, but we have Acosta in that team as well. We have great players like Cellini. We have players like Fall. We got players like so many talented players that in that team, that Opaku, that can surprise anybody anytime, any day. That is a championship team, man. Who knows, with the way they are going, regardless of the setback of the defeat last week, LAFC, who knows, might just go on and become MLS champions again this season. They have what it takes. They have the team to make that happen.
Yeah, you just mentioned a player I was about to talk about, Kwado Opoko, the Ghanaian player. This season, I think he's like a P that just busted out of the ball. Like, you will see his assist, and in the Champions League, he also got goals. Do you think Opoku's contributions has not really been elevated to where he should be in the team?
I think from where he came from, which is literally nowhere, to where he is now, it was an impressive story. I mean, here's a young man who came into LAFC as a trialist, wasn't expected to crack the roster, got situated with COVID, worked his tail off, and Bob gave him a roster spot. And he's just been such a joy to have on this club. There's got to be something in the water at Accra, Ghana, that brings us these players that have so much joy and passion for the game. Of course, I'm talking about one of Chris's friends and favorite players, Latif. But I love Mahala. It's interesting to see him from the position of coming off the bench. He certainly adds that energy that a Latif Blessing did. But I think that between now and the time Stipe Buke really sits and adjusts, I really feel Mahala should be the starter. But with so much focus coming in towards Denny Bouanga, obviously he's going to get a lot less shots. Has he contributed? Can he contribute more? Everybody could always contribute more, but like he says, small boy, big God. He's got a lot of passion and a lot of heart, and I think he's going to be a crucial part of our Champions League run, as he has. I mean, he scored that goal against Cruz Azul in the last time around. I mean, he's a big time player that comes up in big time moments. I have no doubts that between now and the time we beat Leon, we'll see a Kwadwo Mahala Opoku goal within one of those 2 games.
Yes, Kwadwo Opoku, 9 games this season, 7 starts, 611 minutes. He has gathered in those 9 games for LAS. When it comes to his ball distribution, 76.8% success rate, and also a total of 142 passes. Small guy, big heart. He knows how to, and very diminutive the way he makes his runs, very difficult to catch. Kwadwo Opoku from my Ghanaian African brother, give it to him. African Giant. I not should have played that song for, but I played later. African Giant. So, overall, when you look at LAFC, let's say now we take LAFC now to the Premier League. Do you think they can hold their own in the Premier League?
It's tough to compare apples to oranges and cantaloupes to watermelons. Would they compete in the Premier League? Let's put it this way. To be fair, I don't think they would be a club that would land in the relegation zone. But it's still very tough to compare them with the likes of the top 6 that are there. You're talking about teams that have no salary caps, teams that spend an awful lot of money competing against a team that has, restrictions in terms of the amount of money and the amount of players that they can bring in. But that being the case, I do think they could be a mid-tier team within the Premier League and maybe get an upset win against the likes of an Arsenal, certainly a Tottenham.
And a Liverpool.
And a Liverpool today, not a Liverpool a couple of years ago.
No, they cannot. You just made something now that just piqued my interest. Salary caps and number of players you can bring. How has that helped the MLS? Because when I look at the MLS, when a team performs woefully in a season, they get rewarded with the first draft pick from college. And who says that fine talent from college want to go to that team that have been struggling all season to even finish, middle of the table? And do you think the salary cap, all the restrictions have helped the league?
Help the league from a perspective of creating parity. There are no dynasties that you see these days because it's really tough to win in the way that you can. I mean, take the likes of LAFC, since we're talking about them, Chicho Arango. Here's a guy who deserved to get paid a great deal of money. Yes. Could we have made him a designated player? Sure. But I still think that he deserved a bit more money than they were willing to offer him. So when a team wins, the team's eventually going to get dismantled because you're going to have these teams from all over the world looking into poach. Why would Chicho stick around LA for $2 million when he could go down to anywhere else for more money? So I think it does create parity and a bit of excitement. I mean, LAFC could be good this year and then they struggle in the next year, as we saw from 2019 going in all the way to 2020. So it's helped the league by making things exciting and making it open for these other teams to succeed. As far as how it damages it, well, if they want to compete with the big boys, the best teams in the world, they got to bring in the best players. Major League Soccer was considered an old man's retirement farm league for the longest of time by bringing in some of these players that, needed to be put out to the pasture already. Now they've completely shifted that to where they're scouting, developing and selling young players to the likes of bigger clubs. You take the Miguel Almirons going to Newcastle for $26 million, for example. Alphonso Davies leaving the Vancouver Whitecaps. And I'm so honored and privileged that I got to see him when he was there, going and becoming one of the best defenders at Bayern Munich in Europe. It's exciting seeing the MLS grow in that perspective. But if they're ever going to compete with the likes of the Prem, of the Bundesliga, of Serie A, of La Liga, they're going to need to open up the doors sometime soon. Now, a lot of the smaller clubs are going to be left in the dust that way, but such is life in the world of open market capitalistic football. So at the very least, what I would like to see is some slight improvements to the lower salaries, because I think the lowest salary these days is around $65,000, $67,000. That's not a lot of money, especially when you're in these big cities and with all the time. But at the very least, maybe add a fourth designated player onto these rosters just to create a little bit more excitement and have players go have the ability to bring in some more players into this league. I like seeing a Chiellini and a Bale here, but quite honestly, like, I'd rather see them like 10 years ago rather than at 38 and about ready to go compete in golf.
So, Chris, what about you? Do you think when you take LAFC to like La Liga or to Bundesliga, can they compete with what he has said?
Well, you need to understand the philosophy of the team first, because football is not only played physically, it's also played mentally. You need to understand how the team, how they think, and how they think is how they play, how many passes they can complete in the game. So, of course, they're not going to be first 10, but I think LAFC will not go to relegation because of how they play, the way they think, the way they move the ball, their mentality, the culture they have already. There's something going on from them. They are working with a master plan, and that is what makes a team stays on. It's not a disorganized team. They already have a structure. So any team that is structured with a little bit of luck, they can beat any team anytime, any day. That's beauty of football. Underdogs sometimes come from nowhere and surprise the world. Just like my team, Leicester did way back at the 2013 and 2012 season.
But now they are back to where they belong. You know that.
No. It's just one of those things. Like said, things happen. Bad things happen. You still got 3 more games. Who knows? A miracle can happen. We just have. Everton is just 2 points ahead of us and 30 points. If we can win, I know we're beating Liverpool, but guess what? Head on head, we have a good rate of beating Liverpool. We've beaten Liverpool so many times with James Vardy in front of goal. He has a striker, top man. No, it's gonna be difficult. I know.
All right, let me give this song to Kwado Opoku, African Giant. He has been doing great for LAFC. So nobody do it better than me. Can nobody do it better? Check a man see. Yeah, I want to give this one to Kwado Opoku. Kwado Opoku has been doing great stuff for LAFC, scoring goals and providing assists. Small guy, big heart from Accra, Ghana, my African brother. I give it to you, your African Giant. Africa, we don't tire. So here comes the African giant. People don't try. All right, we have less than 2 minutes to wrap up this program today. So, Phil, I really appreciate you for joining us. So, what will be the last word from LA, from the bank, you want to give to our fans on the show today?
Well, first and foremost, again, thank you to both you and Chris for having me on the show. It's an honor. I love talking the sport. I love talking about LAFC. So thank you for that. And I just want to say, keep an eye out on LAFC. We're not only setting trends, we're breaking hearts, and we're coming for everybody globally. This is a very exciting team and is a very indicative of the direction that Major League Soccer is going right now. Long gone are the days since 96 when we lived out in the way that we did. We're an exciting team. And if you really want to get a grasp of football culture and exciting football here in the United States, follow LAFC. In particular this season, because we're going to win that CONCACAF Champions League. We're going for that MLS Cup, and we're still here to continue to break trends, set records, and break hearts.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, LAFC all the way. Anytime, any day, you can look at behind me. 2 away, home and away jersey of LAFC right behind me. I'm supporting them anytime, any day. And I can't wait for this one to happen because this is going to be very special. The LAFC has never won the CONCACAF before. So when they win this one, I'm especially keeping a special victory dance for this moment when we win. It's going to be special. It's going to be great. And all the LAFC fans are going to enjoy that victory dance when it happens after beating Leon come May 31st.
All right, from me to you, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining us. This is Africa Sports Network, and this has been Around the MLS Show with Sam. And I have Chris and I have Phil here. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
We don't tire. So here comes the African